What's going on, you tool-addicted maniac? Every video on this channel that's titled Tradesman, Plumbing, Handyman, Electrician's Hustle is basically designed to do two things. Number one, it's to show tools in action being tested in the trades. Number two, it's to help encourage current and future tradesmen to go out here and use their skills to make even more money now than what they was before. I say whenever you do a job, you should do it to the best of your ability. And you should also do that job so you can squeeze every penny from it that you can get. In this video, we're plumbing some hot water tanks, and I'm going to do just that. Now, whenever it comes down to it, you know as well as I do that everybody has hot water tanks and boilers. I've worked on everything from industrial gas-fired tanks, steam boilers, to commercial and residential vessels. I say hands-on experience and self-education is a must, especially whenever you're dealing with something that's high pressure. I recently serviced an old Parker boiler. Water pump was leaking and needed replaced. Auric control board was updated. And I used my brand new Ideal multimeters here to test out a few things. This is the fuses and the fire eye module that's the brain of the boiler. Now, anytime I service something like this, I always give it a once-over. I check the gas pressure, the plunger, inspect the diaphragm for leaks, inspect the pilot assembly and make sure everything is lined up, inspect the water level, the gaskets, and everything in between. This particular boiler actually runs on gas, and it's meant to heat up the water for an industrial facility. It's a totally different setup than these residential boilers by Bradford White. These are tied in together so they can service a large residential building. Usually you'll find these types of boilers in apartment complexes, nursing home, hotels, casinos, and these standard jacketed tanks will range anywhere from 80 to 200 gallons, which is kind of nice because if you had an apartment building and you had 200 units in it, that's 200 different hot water tanks that you have to buy for each one. That's also excessive water leaks that you're risking, a lot of parts and maintenance repairs over the years. Having two large ones like this down in your boiler room is definitely going to save you money, but they do cost a lot more whenever it comes to purchasing one. And it can take them anywhere from 6 to 8 months to build one. But the overall concept is still a large version of a residential tank. They have TPR valves, heating elements, fuses, temperature control, so on and so forth. Far different than what you'll come across if you work on steam boilers. Steam boilers are a little bit of a different ballgame. Some of them have tubings and flues that you have to maintain, mercury switches or digital control, gas pressure, air intake, sight glasses, fire probes. They got all kinds of different stuff on them. But steam boilers are not designed to heat up water for you to drink. They're designed to heat up water to create steam. As a matter of fact, I've already got a few videos on this channel servicing a Fulton boiler, which you can check out. Whenever it comes to servicing hot water tanks, residential tanks are usually going to be the most common. Parts are definitely going to be much easier to come by, and you have a little bit more room to make some extra money on the side whenever you get a service or decommission these things. But you got a ton of different options out here, whether you're getting a tall boy or a low boy. And you got standard tanks, you got A.O. Smith, Ream, Whirlpool. A dozen different brands, but they all function the same. The prices will vary depending on what you're installing and taking out. Trailer tanks are going to be different than residential tanks for your house. And you're going to be spending anywhere from $600 to $800 depending on what you're getting. So anytime you do services for a customer, it's going to be in your best interest to do that service to the best of your ability. Take out the old tank, put a new one in. Whenever you take out the old tank, it's in your best interest to strip that tank down for whatever useful parts you can get out of it. You never know when you're going to need a little plastic cover that's going to break on one tank that you're working on. You're going to have one extra laying around that you can put on from an old tank. You might come across a client who has a tank. You took the little access panel off so you can get in there to the heating element. The access panel itself is rusted to pieces. You have one laying around to put on it. Right there you go. That little extra step, you could tell the client, hey, this was rusted up. I have an extra one. I'm going to hook you up with a new one just so it looks good. They're not really going to care about the fact that the thing is rusted. What they're going to care about is the fact that you're trying to help them out, even if it's something that small. You see, hot water tanks are going to have common fail items, just like anything else does. TPR valve could fail. Maybe you got a ton of condensation built up inside the tank. Maybe the drain valve on it's going to be a little bit clogged up. Condensation surrounding it. You ain't able to drain it out. If you go in to help out a customer, for an example with a TPR valve, you can tell them the price of the new one and what you're going to charge them to put it in. Or you can tell them, hey, I got this extra TPR valve that I pulled off an old tank. It still works. Everything's good on it, and I'll sell it to you for this price. Doing little things like that's going to give them options. It's going to help save them some money. It's also going to help make you some money because that TPR that you're going to put in come off a tank that you stripped down earlier on. You don't really have nothing invested in it, but you're making something off of it. And you're saving the customer some money, which means chances are they're going to call you back up in the future for future repairs. There's a lot of different things that you can service whenever it comes to a hot water tank. Everything from the electrical to the plumbing side of it. Maybe you got a hot water tank that keeps tripping a breaker. You're going to come in and diagnose what the problem is with that hot water tank. Maybe it's going to be the breaker, something as simple as that. You take out the breaker, you put in a new one. You're going to go from the breaker to the tank, verifying the voltage. Check out the temperature controls. Verify that the heating elements are working. Verify that everything's got ground and is not grounding out inside the tank. You might have a leak on one of the fittings. If you got a leak on the fitting, you got to cut apart the lines, take the fittings off, put some new fittings on. Maybe the old galvanized nipples on them them has been rusted and corroded. You need to replace them. And of course, there's a variety of different methods as to how you can put these tanks in and out. You can go old school and solder all the lines. You can hook up flex lines to them, which some of my clients have. A lot of people these days are using PEX, but in my personal opinion, I like using ProPress. The name of the game here is making money. So at the end of the day, whatever makes you the most money is what you need to go with. It comes down to the brass tacks. At the end of the day, the ProPress is going to be the most fast, effective tool that you got. You can cut out the old lines and the old tank and put in a new one in a matter of minutes. There's going to be situations that you get into where the problem is going to be the heating element itself, which means you're going to have to drain the tank, put in a new heating element. If you cannot afford a new heating element, you can always tell them, hey, I'll hook you up with this heating element right here. It's not brand new, but I'm going to put it in for free and just charge you for the labor. Parts are what the client's paying for anyhow. If you're not going to mark up on parts, all they're charging you for is the labor. That's going to earn you some brownie points with that client, and they're going to reuse you again in the future. And since a heating element is something that you do not know if it's going to fail in the next few months or not, I wouldn't charge them for it. Whenever it comes to something like a used TPR valve or a drain valve, that's a little bit of a different story because you can rebuild those and reuse them. Same thing can be said for the thermostat. Now, thermostats are a little bit different. I might charge for them, but I'm not going to charge a lot. Thermostats are common fail items. Pretty easy to test and diagnose those to ensure that they're working properly. If you're changing a dozen tanks like I have, and the only thing wrong with that tank is the fact that the tank itself was corroded and leaking, then all the parts on it was functioning properly, which means they're good. You just got to figure out what type of price it is that you're going to charge them for used parts. But I always strip down everything I can and reuse what I can in order to make some extra money. You could even reuse the copper pipes. You cut out some of the old copper pipes. I use what I can so it saves the customer a little bit of money, especially whenever you're hooking up a TPR line. I don't want to use a bunch of old messed up soldered joints to put on a brand new tank, but I will use those joints to hook up the TPR. And if for whatever reason you can't use those copper pipes, you can always haul them off to your scrap metal place near you. Strip down the copper, strip out the copper wiring. You can always reuse the copper wiring when wiring up other tanks. You can always save all your old hot water tanks, pile them up until you get your truckload of them, take them to your local scrap yard. Like I said, the name of the game is making money. The best way you can make money is to squeeze every penny out of something that you can get. Reuse, refurbish, resell. Now, personally speaking, anytime I'm on the job, I also like to point things out to clients and let them know what's going on. If you're upfront and honest with them, it's going to go a long way to earning a customer for life. Depending on whatever state you're in, it will determine what the laws are and what you're supposed to go by. But you know how the government is. They'll do anything to make sure they get their cut in what you're doing. Like in the state of Kentucky, for an example, they want you to be a certified plumber, or they want you to pull a permit to work on your own property. Something as simple as changing a P-trap. At least that's what the law says. The question I've got is, how in the hell do all these maintenance technicians across the entire state get by with working on plumbing? If you're supposed to be under a certified plumber, then why in the hell can't these guys go out here and get their own license? Because it ain't right that they're out here doing the work, but they never have the opportunity to go out here and get licensed and get paid what they should be getting paid. Which is exactly why people hire people like me to come out there and do the jobs that they don't want to do. If you got somebody who's an owner of a property and you tell them how much it's going to cost them to call around and get them a plumber, an electrician, a drywaller, a framer, whatever they need to get that job done, it's going to cost them a ton of money to get something so simple as a hot water tank installed. So what you can do is look up the price that it's going to cost them for a professional plumber to come in and install a hot water tank. Tell them to call around themselves and get a quote and an estimate. Because depending on what size you're putting in, what type it is, the location you're putting it in at, and everything else that needs done, it might cost anywhere from $800 to $2,800. Here's some of the stats from Home Advisor. You can clearly see it's going to cost you a pretty penny just to get a hot water tank installed. So let's say you've got a professional plumber that's going to come out here and charge them around $2,500. If you come in at $2,000 or $2,200, you're still going to be saving that customer some money. And they don't got to hire 5 or 6 different contractors to get the job done. They can hire one person that does it all. Obviously, you can't charge professional plumber prices because you're not a professional plumber. But you don't need to devalue your skills either. Always charge exactly what it is that you're worth. Like I said, there's a lot of common fail items on a hot water tank. Breakers, wiring, thermostat, heating element. You can have leaks around the fittings, the seals, the heating element itself around the tank. It can be cracked. Working on gas fired, you got the pilot system to worry about. Maybe they call out a plumber to do something as simple as drain the tank. They're still going to charge them $200 to do it, where you can do it for $150. While you're there on site, you can always tell them some of the other things that you can do for them. Upsell them on things that they should be doing. It's in everyone's best interest if you own a car to change the oil on that car every so many miles. It's also in your best interest to rotate those tires when you do that. That way you extend the lifetime of your engine and your tires on the road. Anything else inside your home, such as a hot water tank, has routine maintenance as well. These tanks are already expensive, so if you can tell the customer you'll come back every so many months and go ahead and drain that tank, get all the sediment out of it and refill it for them, maybe they'll hire you on to do that. And while you're there, you can tell them a few other things that you'll do maybe free of charge. You'll check all of their angle stops, make sure they're not leaking, make sure their faucets don't need rebuilt, see if they want to upgrade their light fixtures to LED. Numerous things that you can say to these customers to upsell your value to them. Convince them to hire you for the skills that they need. If you want to hear me talk about my game plan, maybe we'll make a future video about this and I'll tell you how I get customers and what my game plan is. So if you want to hear that kind of content, why don't you comment down below and let me know. As I said in the beginning, another reason that I like making videos like this is so you can see the tools that I'm using in action. They're being tested in the trades doing real world repairs. They're being used side by side against other brands. That way I can tell the performance from one to the next. Tools are an investment for any trade. It's something you're going to use day in and day out because you depend on those tools to earn your money. So you're going to want something that works best for you. You got to ask yourself, is a $25 pair of pliers just as good as a $60 pair? Then of course we can talk about tools like the Ridgid Pro Press. That's an investment on its own. It costs you upwards of $2,500 depending on what kind you're getting. And of course you got the other versions, Dewalt, Milwaukee, and a bunch of other brands brand. Ask yourself, how fast and efficient are these tools going to be for you in order for you to get this job done and move on to the next one? You might be somebody who is perfectly fine with going out here and soldering pipes. You might be okay using PEX pipes for a little while. But the Pro Press tools out here are definitely the most fast and effective way for you to get the plumbing done and get out to the next job. Now, on a personal note, the tools that I like using professionally are going to be CHANNELLOCK tools. Tool brand that I grew up seeing my dad, my granddad, my great-granddad use. For the last 2 decades in the trades, I can tell you one thing, regardless of what type of trade you're in, what type of job site you walk into, somebody's going to have a pair of CHANNELLOCK pliers there on that job site.